example, we have a user in our account whom we want to provide a privileged role such as user administrator. Now, if you want to apply user administrator role to any user, for example, we have user 1 in our account. So that user, I want to make him as a user administrator. So if you go to Microsoft Entra and give the permission of a user administrator to user 1, what will happen? He will have the permission 24/7. But since we want to have a particular time based management for the role that is given to user 1, for that particular purpose we will not go to Microsoft Entra. Rather than that, we will go to Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management. Under the Privileged Identity Management, we can go with an assignment of user administrator to one of the user, which is user 1 in our case, and give him temporary assignment for a particular time. So as we've already discussed, there can be two types of assignment. One is eligible assignment and one is active assignment. In the eligible assignment, we have two categories. One, to make him permanently eligible, or to make him eligible for a time period, maybe from today to 10 days from now. In the active assignment, we can permanently make him active, but that will reduce the impact of why we are using PIM. And in the active assignment, we just have to put a justification why we are trusting this user so much that there is no process mechanism, and we are no justification just with the justification, the request of working as a user administrator is there for the user. So for creating privileged identity management for the user, we'll go to Microsoft Entra roles or Azure resources. So we can activate for roles also and for the resources as well. So first we'll go to the roles section and activate user 1 as a user administrator. So here we have the option that we have the privileged identity management and assign option. So we'll click on assignment. You must have a P2 license to work with the privileged identity management. So that is mandatory. We'll click on add an assignment. So this assignment is being added as a part of PIM, right? So first we'll select the role, which role I want to assign as a privileged identity role. So I will click as the role of user administrator. So we'll select it from here. And then I have to select which member I want to make a user administrator under PIM. So in the user, I have already created a user called user 1. So I will assign the user administrator permission to that user. So I have user 1 here and I will select this. Click on next. Then in the next page, it will be asked eligible or active assignment. In the eligible assignment, you can make him permanently eligible. Or if you remove this option, you have the option that from 5/5/2024 to 5/5/2025, you can make him eligible for applying for the role of working as a user administrator. It does not mean that he will be working as a user administrator, but each time during this period, whenever he wants to execute the work or functionality of a user administrator, he can send a request to the approver. The approver will approve the request, and then after he can work as a user administrator. So I will click on the permissions and click on assign. You can also select active assignment, but for that you will need a justification. So it's added. One assignment in the eligible assignment we have done, which is of a user 1 to work as a eligible user administrator. That's the role associated, right? So now this is the role, user administrator. Now let's log in as user 1 in another account. So I am logged in as a user 1. Now, since in the global administrator has made this user administrator, we know the properties of user administrator, that the user administrator can create users, delete user. But when you go into the Microsoft Azure Entra and try to create a user, it is grayed out. You don't have the permission to create a user. Neither you go to roles and administrator, and if you check your permission here, your permission will just be of a user only. So that means it is not applicable in Entra, but we have to go to Privileged Identity Management there. And now in Privileged Identity Management, I have to click on my roles and check which role I am eligible for. So you are eligible to work as a user administrator from the time mentioned here. So I have to click on, the user has to click on activate. Now the moment activate you click, you have to the validation of the request will be sent, but before the validation you have the option that for how much time interval you want to activate this role. This setting the user or the global administrator, that is the global administrator or PIM manager, can do it at his end also. He can manage the settings related to the role. So to manage the settings related to the role, he can go back to the roles section and explore the role that is there. So we will go back to the PIM here and click on roles. Such a role like we have to search for user administrator. This was the permission that I gave to the user. So the moment I will click on user administrator, I can do certain settings related to this user. Now I'll go to role settings and change the setting related to user administrator. So I will click on edit. Now here I on activation I can enforce him to complete the MFA, then only he can go with PIM, or I can just select none. I have an approver already selected. This I did on the previous time, but when you do it for the first time, you have to select the approver. In the case of approver, you can make more than one approver also. So I can make the admin account the approver, and if you want to make anyone notified, maybe some email IDs, whenever the user is activated as a user administrator, you want to send an email to any person or a recipient, so you can mention the email IDs for those person. You can send notifications as well. We'll just keep it as default and click on update. So we have updated the role settings for user administrator. It is successful. So we'll go back here, and now is the what is the time window for which I can activate the request? It was 8 hours, right? So here, as the user administrator, if my work is only, my window is 8 hours, but I want to work only for 5 hours as a user administrator, so I can request for 5 hours and click on activate. So I am activating this role. I am requesting for activating this role for 5 hours. Now, whom you can also check in the pending roles section. You can check your my requests that you have already sent a request pending approval. So who will approve? Admin 1 will approve. I will log in into admin 1 and check approve request options. Since I am an approver, so I got a request to approve it. Just refresh it. Request for approval for the user administrator. I can approve his request. From this time to this time, he has requested for approval for 5 hours window from the time now to 5 hours from now. So I will click on approve. And I have to write a justification why I am approving his request. So you can just write anything like approved. Okay. The user, when he is sending the request also, he can write the justification. Confirm. So you have to select that he has to write the justification, then only the user will be asked. And the request is approved. Now I will go back as user 1. And since the request has been approved, I will just refresh it. Okay. Go back to privileged identity, Microsoft Entra roles, and my roles. So I will work as a user administrator, and all the no more pending requests are there. All those pending requests are already approved, so no need to worry as of now. So organizations which wants to check the users which and their permissions, associated permissions. So if a user has more than one permission, for example, a user John has moved to another department and the previous role is also still applicable to that user. So if we want to make a access review, create an access review for the users, and the mail will be sent to those users and they have to reply within the time window. If they do not reply, the roles will be removed. If they reply with a no, the roles will be removed. But if they reply with a yes, that they require both the roles, then the roles will be with them. So it is just to check what access are there with the employees. Uh, Also with the idea that no more privileges are associated, only the least privilege idea is to be worked upon with the users. So track reviews for compliance or risk sensitive application, evaluate the role assignment, and you must have a P2 license for this. So if you see access review in the portal, you have the option that you can go to privileged identity management, click on that. And for the access reviews, administrator has the right to enable the PIM, right? And they must you can activate it for the privileged roles and make sure that there are at least two privileged role administrator when you are working with PIM. And we have already seen how we can make the activation with a justification, the assignment for what duration we want, and the notification if you want to send any. In the PIM workflow, we understood how we can select a user. For example, in our case, it was user one, and assign the permission like user administrator. And for the time window we have assigned, he can activate the role by sending a request to the approver. The approver will approve the request, and then the last step is for the audit. Once the audit is completed, the user can work as a user administrator, and we can further make reviews, access reviews if you want, and also export history of the all the privilege assignments that we have done. So that sums up to privilege identity management, which is a very important topic for AZ 500. If you have any queries, please reach out.
Thank you everyone. Like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel and keep learning.